Okay, I feel bad about ending that video right there, but I don't know how long this video is, and I don't know whether this video ends up needing two videos of it. And so I kind of got into that weird time frame of, well, maybe I've got 5 minutes and maybe I've got 20 minutes. When I plan these out, and I'm rambling and I'm not going to apologize for it. When I plan the videos out, I have an idea of what I want to talk about, but I mainly just kind of do it off the cuff. And that leads to sometimes not having a full layout, not being scripted. I don't script anything out. I don't like that myself, so I don't do it when I do. Anyhow, let's get back over here. Sorry. Um, okay, so I'm going to save this as precedence O2, and that way, with that last video, you'll have that in the zip file so you can open it up. But I'm also now going to save this as precedence O3 so that I can modify this. And I'm going to delete this part here because that's just not necessary for what we have. Okay. So I really have two more things that I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about the logical OR and how SQL Server Integration Services deals with multiple constraints. But I also want to talk to you about annotations. So let's do the logical OR first. Okay, so you see this solid line here. The solid line is what you visually can use to determine that everything must evaluate to true. Okay, so when you have multiple constraints like we do here, you see we've got multiple constraints pointing to a single task. You can define when that task runs. You can say both of these must be true. This one succeeds and this one fails. Or you can say one of them must be true. Okay, so we talk about that in programming terms as the logical, oops, that's not what I meant to do. Delete that, and I meant to do this. Okay, we talk about this being the logical AND, which is everything must be true, or we talk about the logical OR, one must be true. And so when you're working with multiple precedence constraints that are tied into a task or a container, you have the choice. You can either say that these constraints are logical AND, or these constraints are logical OR. And what's the default? Well, you know it up here. We saw it right there. Let me just come back up here. The default is the logical AND. They all must evaluate to true. So when you get that solid line right here between the solid line here, because it's a solid line that it's a logical AND. Now you can edit this. Now take a look right here. Right click, edit, and down at the bottom, ignore this top part, okay? You can change it to success. We're going to talk about this part later in the course, but just down here at the bottom. Look right here. There's a whole section down here for how you deal with multiple constraints. Okay? So what this section down here is saying, what this section right here says is that if this task has multiple constraints coming into it, do you want them to be logical AND or logical OR? And notice the default setting right there. It's already previously set to the logical AND. So that is the default, right? The big D. So let's switch it to the logical OR. And you will see that instead of solid lines, they now become dashed lines. Okay? So dashed lines are logical OR, solid lines are logical AND. Okay? That's pretty simple. Now things change radically once you've gone from a logical AND only to a logical OR for your precedence constraints. Remember when we had the thread.sleep and we had both of those expressions evaluating to true, and it had to wait for both of them to complete before it ran that bottom task because they both had to be true and it didn't know that the other one was successful until it was finished, right? Well, now in a logical OR situation, either one of these can become true. The first one that becomes true causes this one to run. Well, let's make that, let's see if we can understand this. Remember that this will fail. So this is going to be red, and red is going to be true because we said that it's a failure. Okay, this is going to succeed, and it's going to be true, so that's going to cause this to run. But because we've made it a logical OR, either one of them, the first one that reports in true wins, and it will continue on to executing that next one. Watch this. I'm going to go back to the will succeed. Let's uncomment back our sleep. So now this one is going to sleep for 5 seconds. And the question then becomes, when does this run? Does it run as soon as this fails? Or does it wait for both of these to come back? And when we execute this, you'll notice this one is still not finished. That's what the yellow is indicating. But look, you see? There we go. Oh, and because I changed this one, I know I can't do that, but sorry, that's not what I wanted to show you. I wanted to do this, but you could see that as soon as this one failed, it ran that particular task. And then it only runs it one time. It doesn't run it again when this one's finished. The logic is smart enough to stop that. It only runs it one time. Basically, SSIS doesn't have to wait for both of these tasks to complete. Once one of these is true, you said that it was a logical OR, and so it goes and it runs that bottom task. That's the logical OR. Now, so you got the basics of the logical AND. You got the basics, I think, of the logical OR. Don't be afraid to test this out. That's what's so great about having these things like thread.sleep and message boxes. This is not code that we would run in a production system, right? But it's a great way for us to see proof of concept things, to figure out what's going on behind the scenes. It's really good tools to have in your SSIS quiver. Okay. Now, final little bit here. I think I can go ahead and finish out with this particular video. I thought I'd maybe need another one, but I think I'm going to, even if I go long, I'm going to finish on this one. One little other thing. Let's take this out. I don't need to have that. I just keep it simple here. Okay. And let's add a text annotation that says, if this fails, it will still run the run on success script task. Oops, do this. As long as will succeed executes successfully. So we've added a nice little annotation, and unfortunately with annotations you can't tie them to anything. So the problem then becomes, what if I move this around? Oh man, I got to drag this, right? So you start now doing your auto formatting, and oh, it left that. Well, I want that to be up there. That's annoying, right? Cool. I got something for you. Delete that. Here's what you do. You go to your annotation and you edit it. And so you go to the properties of it. Sorry. And in the properties, you have two things. You have the description and the name. So you can be very descriptive with the name, and certainly you could be descriptive with the description. And so take a look. I'm going to put in the description up here, I'm going to say, run on success will execute as long as will fail or will succeed does something. I kind of confused myself with my own logic here. But so now, and I've gone to the package here, I need to go to this right here to be able to see that there, the precedence constraint. So you see it. It doesn't change over here, right? Now, go back over here, go to the properties. You see this show annotation? Drop it down. Constraint description. And look at that. It doesn't matter where I move this around, it's going to show that description. How about that? You dig that? I like that. Now, if that's a little too verbose for you here, what you can do, you can come over here, go back to the properties of this, and you can make it a little different. So you could say, just show me the constraint name, And so now you could change this constraint fail. I don't know, right? It doesn't like that constraint fail, right? So you can put the name of the constraint in. So whatever you want to put in. I like this other one up here, this constraint options. So now it's showing failure right here, and we can come up to this one and go to properties and say constraint options success. Okay. So now that seems kind of logical because I can see green and red, right? So it's maybe not so helpful. When you get into expressions, when we talk about those in chapter 5, you're going to probably find yourself doing that quite a bit because it will show the expression in the syntax, in the annotation as well. So that annotation can really, really help you out of some sticky spots later on when you come back. And you don't have to keep it enabled. You can leave it turned off. Sorry, I always do that. You can leave it turned off or to set to never or as needed. And then when you come back in to debug the package, you could say, show me what's that one. Oh, yeah, I get it. Okay. And you just go back to what it was set to.